Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host of the Leaders with a Heart podcast. They have another awesome guest, my new good friend, Tracey Rampling Brown. She's from Australia, but currently living in beautiful Italy. She was referred to me by an incredible lady on my podcast maybe 2, 3 weeks ago, Mary Gooden, absolute angel, a true leader with a heart. And what can I say about Tracy? We've had a very very awesome conversation for the past half an hour almost. Even though it's the first time we ever connect and talk, we can feel that we can talk for hours because we are, we have the same frequency, we are on the same mission. It's to build businesses with impact, and she's doing something wonderful. We're going to talk about that. She's a coach for multi potentialities and multi passionate women, many other things. I was about to sorry, I was about to say carrot. My bad. It's a tarot and oracle reader, Reiki practitioner, certified monologuer, author, and ghostwriter, wife and mother of two incredible or incredibly challenging teenagers, and devoted slave to her lovely Bengal cat. So a lot of things that she's wearing a lot of hats, but for here we're gonna be talking about the person, the heart. So, Tracy, my friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Payman. It is such a joy to be here, and it never ceases to amaze me how quickly you can build rapport with somebody when you are vibrating on that same frequency.
Absolutely. Mine is a little, thing that instead of saying carrot, I was about to say carrot. So forgive me for that.
That's okay. I think that's pretty funny.
All right. So for people who don't know you, first of all, who's Tracy? Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, so I am, as you mentioned, I'm an Australian girl. I grew up moving around Australia and also internationally. And so I love to travel. And my husband also had a very similar kind of upbringing in the oil and gas industry. And we found ourselves living in our home country town. And our children were living completely different lives than the ones that we had grown up in. And it got to the point where we realized that we wanted to give them the same kinds of benefits we had had as kids. And so we sold up, we uprooted and moved ourselves to Italy about 3 years ago. And pandemic aside, it was an amazing adventure to just completely relocate to the other side of the world, learn a new language, immerse ourselves in culture and history. We brought our cat with us from Australia, which was
Wow.
certainly an adventure in and of itself. Um, but we are so grateful to have really taken that leap of faith and start living that dream that we'd had for so long to actually move overseas, because it might only have happened 3 years ago, but it's something that had been on the cards for a really long time. But it was always like, in a couple of years, or, like, we'll get to it one day. And it finally got to that day when we had to do it now. Like, it was time to sink or swim and take that leap of faith that everything was going to be okay and everything was going to work out the way that it was meant to for us. And one of the things that it has really taught me is how much happens for you when you start leaning into your dreams and when you really start taking that leap of faith. Everything changes, everything up levels, everything comes, together for you. And even though, there are challenges along the way, right? Nothing we ever do in life is challenge free, or nothing worthy in life is ever challenge free.
Absolutely.
But when we face those challenges and we really commit to the thing that we want in life, the the whole universe gets behind you and makes things happen.
Okay.
So aside from traveling and learning about Italian culture and history and eating as much pizza and pasta and gelato as possible,
Speaking of
I
which,
love.
how would you speak? Sorry to interrupt you. Speaking of which, how would you compare the pizza that you eat in Italy versus the one you have in Australia?
Oh,
Because,
it's
and
not
the reason
even.
I'm
It's,
asking is because my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, is from Italy, and he cannot stand the pizzas in here. He said that's blasphemy. It doesn't even come anywhere close to them.
Yeah, it's like they're completely different foods. I mean, pizza in Australia is probably quite similar to pizza in Canada. You get your Domino's and your Pizza Hut and things like that. Your thick crust
More like a pie than a
pizzas.
pizza.
Yeah, and even if you get classic crust or thin crust, it's really more like a cracker biscuit, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas here you've got that really nice yeasty, fluffy dough
Mm.
that comes from the natural levitation of the yeast. And there's just something different about it. Those
Mm-hmm.
wood-fired ovens, the fresh ingredients, and how they turn pizza into less is more, like fewer
Mm.
toppings. I don't know what
Oh
it's like in
yes.
Canada, but in Australia, it's like pile the toppings on so that
Oh
they're like an
yes.
inch thick. The more, the
Mm-hmm.
better. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
here, it's about simplicity and
Oh yeah.
flavor, harmonious flavors,
Oh yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
preferably no pineapple.
Oh. He sent me the other day a video of a Napolitan, a pizza guy in Naples. He was trying to send to people pizza with pineapple. He was getting chased, was getting cursed, he was getting beaten up. And I said, "What's wrong?" Actually, personally, I like pineapple on my pizzas. So
What can I say? I'm not averse to it either. It's quite a debate between my son and daughter, actually, because my daughter loves Hawaiian pizza, right? She absolutely loves it. And my son is like, they're going to kick you out of Italy for wanting pineapple on your pizza. But in our village, one of the pizzeria actually has a pizza called Hawaii,
mm.
and it has ham and pineapple on this pizza
Is
with the
that popular with
cheese.
the locals or only with foreigners?
Probably only with foreigners. I'm not really sure, but it's on the menu, so I mean they must sell it. But it doesn't have tomato on it. They do it as a pizza bianca, which is really interesting. So my daughter likes to, when we go there, because she can order her pineapple on her pizza. And I had the young delivery guy came the other day actually, and he admitted, he was like, actually, don't tell anybody, but I quite like pineapple on pizza too. He said, I can't tell my friends. He said, but it's also really good if you put gorgonzola on top of it and let that melt over the pineapple. It's really good. He said, it's no
Yeah.
different than putting pear on pizza. We put pear on pizza. Like, why can't we have pineapple?
Yeah. Actually, when I was living in Brazil, they have a specialty pizza called pizza doces, which is sweet pizzas with
Mm.
caramel, with vanilla, with chocolate. And when I told that to Antonio, my brother-in-law, I said, "Oh my God, that's blasphemy." Another thing that he was very, we had a very passionate conversation about this. I was just teasing because I love teasing him. How you break the pasta, the spaghetti.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, if you do that in front of me, I will never touch it. And if you do that in Italy, that's illegal. That's criminal. Make sure people don't know about it.
Yeah, they're very passionate about their food here, and I think that that's actually one of the
Oh
things
yeah.
that's really endearing about them, is that they're
Oh
so
yeah.
focused on, you know, what they call kilometri zero, like local zero food
Mm,
miles, kind of grown within, a
I
few
love that.
kilometers of your village, or even within the country. They prefer things that are
Mm,
grown and made in Italy, but they're also
oh yeah.
really protective of varieties that are grown in certain areas, or things that are made in certain ways. And so things
Mm-hmm.
like your like Parmesan cheese, for example,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for it to be called Parmesan Reggiano, can only be made in like this very small area, because if it isn't grown between this hill and this bit and that bit, the cows aren't going to be eating the same herbs and flowers and things in the meadows, and the milk is going to taste different, and then it's not going to taste like what it's
Yeah.
supposed to. And so if you go further up the valley, it's called Grana Padano instead. Very similar kind of cheese, but it's not the same. And the
I don't
Italians
know.
don't think it's the same. Like it's not even close to the same. Whereas in more Western cultures, we don't really tell the difference between them. You
Produce
know,
Italian cheese.
yeah, it's interchangeable for us, but no, not for the
It's
Italians.
part of their incredible charm. Yeah. So yeah, I love that. So let's before we start, as I said, I'd like to have a heart-to-heart conversation, getting to know the person, seeing what's inside of their hood. First of all, tell us, Tracy, what makes you happy?
Mountains. I love
Mm.
mountains.
Are you saying
Like,
that because you grew up by the beach and you wanted something different?
yeah, well, I see. I don't know. I mean, I did grow up in Australia and the ocean. Like, I love the ocean. That's probably the
Oh yeah.
thing I miss. Aside from family, it's the thing I miss the most about Australia is the ocean.
Mhm.
Because let me tell you, the Mediterranean Sea is not anything like the Indian
Oh yeah.
Ocean.
Hmm.
It's like a warm bathtub in comparison.
Hmm.
But mountains are just, I don't know, there is something about their timeless majesty. I am so lucky that where we live, we can actually see mountains on pretty much almost all sides of where our
Where are
house
you
is.
guys based now?
So we're just based outside Torino or Turin,
Oh, okay.
in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
northwest of Italy in the region of Piemonte. And so we have the French and the Swiss Alps around us. And then further to the south, you can also see the, I'm going to get it wrong. I want to say Apennines, but I don't think it's the Apennines. It's something else starting with A. Anyway, down near
Yeah.
Liguria, there's another mountain range
Yes,
that then
yes,
goes
yes,
right
yes.
down the center of Italy. And so, but the Alps are just, they're majestic and breathtaking. And I love everything about, when you are driving up into the mountains and as you get close to the foothills and they rise up and suddenly they go from being far off in the horizon to completely swallowing you up.
Hmm.
And it just, there is a special zen about them, this timeless quality that they have been here and they have seen everything, right?
Yeah.
They've lived 1,000 lifetimes and they
Oh
just
yeah.
continue to do so quietly. But then when you have those sunsets and the sun goes down behind the mountains and they turn that dusky indigo blue gray, and you've got that beautiful kind of almost neon pinky orange going down
Oh
behind
wow.
them, it looks like a painting. Like, I just cannot explain it. And it
Hmm.
just fills my heart with joy and gratitude to be
Oh
able to
yeah.
live somewhere where this is my everyday. And then don't even get
Absolutely.
me started on snow-capped mountains. Like snow, oh my goodness, we don't get snow in Australia. So, seeing
Oh
snow here
yeah.
just is
It's not
something else.
it's not too cold for you going from tropical Australia to a place in northern Italy where it's not the best weather. It's mostly rainy and cloudy and snowing at times.
Look, I'm not really a fan of heat and humidity, to be honest. So
Hmm.
this is actually like heaven for me.
Okay.
We're in the middle of summer at the moment, and it's been hot and humid this past 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And Italians don't really do air conditioning the way we do in Australia. Summer in Australia, you turn the air conditioning on as soon as it gets hot and you turn it off when it's winter time. And that's it. It's constant 18 degrees in the house all day. Italians don't really do air conditioning like that. And so learning to live with, it's like
How do
my
they do it?
childhood. Well, learning when to open and close the shutters, actually, like
Mm.
keeping them open until sort of 10:30, 11 in the morning, closing the shutters so that the house stays cool and dark. You might
Mhm.
have some box fans or, like fans. If you do have an air conditioner, you only turn it on for about 5 minutes to refresh the room and then you
Oh
turn it
wow.
off again.
Mm.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
they don't turn it on and leave it on. And yeah, so you open the windows when it gets cool enough to let the fresh air in and to air out the house, throw them open wide in the afternoons.
Mm.
But yeah, it's all about managing the heat, which is interesting. Like, I'm learning so much.
It's interesting. You
South
come from a tropical country and you're learning in Italy how to manage the heat. That's interesting. Yeah.
I know, right? It's completely different. But yeah, I mean, in winter, you do have the difference. You have radiators here. See, we don't have radiators in
Mm.
Australia because you
Sure.
don't really need
Hmm.
them like that. But I mean, that's been a revelation as well.
I
So,
mean, your winters in Australia are probably our summers here in Canada. So.
yeah, well, this is the thing. Like in Perth, in particular, where I'm from, you don't really get like a northern hemisphere winter at all. It's kind of like if you married the fall and the spring together, like
Wow.
the coldest parts of autumn and spring would actually be an Australian winter. Unless you're somewhere like maybe in the mountains in New South Wales or
So
Victoria where they
what's the
actually get.
winter? What's the winter down there like? What, 15 degrees, 20 degrees Celsius on
Yeah,
average?
if it might get down to 8 to 10 degrees on a really
Oh wow.
cold day, and overnight, if it gets down to 2 degrees or even 0, maybe -1, -2, that's really cold overnight.
Amazing.
But through the days, it's very rarely below 10 degrees during the day.
Amazing. I can't wait till I can experience Australia myself. It's been a while on my list. All right. So what makes you smile?
What makes me smile? Oh, all the things. My pussycat, she's
Mm-hmm.
a character. Photos of my kids when they were small. They're teenagers now, so they make me smile, but in different ways. But looking at them when they were little brings joy back into my heart. They talk back a lot less in a photo. Spending time with family, though, brings
Oh
a
yeah.
smile to my face. I love talking with family back home. I love spending time with family here, and also meeting people like friends online, or talking to
Mm-hmm.
friends, or really connecting with other like-minded souls makes me smile. There's nothing better than having an amazing conversation with somebody who lights up your heart.
Sure. Absolutely. Speaking of that, perfect segue. What makes you come alive?
What makes me come alive? I absolutely love talking about the moon cycles and
Mm,
shifting paradigms, the divine feminine. That's one of the things at the moment that really absolutely lights me up, talking about manifestation and new ways of doing business, new ways of doing things that align with what we want to be doing rather than what everyone tells us we should be doing. Um, I come alive when talking about, books that I love, particularly series of books. My sister and I often have amazing conversations
mm-hmm.
riffing off, um, particular book series or movie series and things like that that we are in love with, that just gives us this opportunity to explore this fantasy world of possibilities, I guess.
Absolutely amazing. Wow. Going to talk about that in a moment because that's something I want to dive deeper into. But first, what makes you sad and angry?
Oh, what makes me sad and angry? People being mean to each other unnecessarily and
Mm,
excluding people for things that are out of their control.
mm-hmm.
It absolutely is devastating to me when you see somebody struggling with something that is entirely out of their control to change,
Mm-hmm.
and that when you can see their heart breaking as well and you can feel their pain, it just absolutely guts me. And it makes me so cross when people have no empathy for others, because if you can't put yourself in somebody else's shoes and think about how what you're saying might make them feel or how it affects them, and you don't care, like that's just, it's beyond disgusting.
I totally agree with you on that. Totally agree. What scares you?
Oh, lots of things scare me. I'm getting a lot better at pushing past the things that kind of, put fear in my heart. I'm scared of snakes,
Oh,
hate snakes. Whether that's just an Australian thing, but it scares me here in Italy too. Just if you told me not to walk somewhere because there might be snakes there, I will never go there ever. Like, I'm done. Um, I couldn't care less about spiders. As long as I've got a good shoe, I can sort that out. But snakes, I've never been bitten by a snake, but I'm just, irrational fears of snakes.
I see.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So let me ask you now some fun questions. When we're kids, people always ask us whether it's parents, family, teachers. So Tracy, what do you want to become when you grow up? What was your answer back then?
When I was a kid, I wanted to become a kindergarten teacher or a
Mm,
hairdresser.
nice.
Yeah. So that was when I was, oh, and when I was about 5, I wanted to be a ballerina.
Wow. Did you pursue any of those or?
Funnily enough, I did do ballet classes
Mhm.
as a kid. Um, I didn't become a kindergarten teacher exactly, but I became a Cub Scout leader for about 5 years. So I spent time preparing curriculum and teaching, like 7-year-olds to 11-year-olds how to, do life skills, tie knots, light fires, build cubbies, cook, all kinds of different things through the scouting movement. When we first moved to Italy, I did briefly, well, I wasn't homeschooling in the way that most people homeschool, but I was facilitating their learning via distance education
Mhm.
and whatnot. And then through the pandemic, of course, coordinating all of their Zoom calls like a secretary.
Mhm.
I think I can quite confidently tick kindergarten teacher off the list, or teacher of some description, because um, I've manifested that in different ways.
That's awesome.
And hairdresser, again, the pandemic made that one come true for me. I have become the family hairdresser, and pretty much everybody lines up for my hairdressing skills in my family now. My husband, my son, and my daughter have
That's
each
awesome.
had multiple haircuts at my hand and
Mhm.
actually go out in public like that. So it mustn't be too bad.
Amazing, amazing. Wow. So when you were a kid in school, what was your favorite subject?
Oh, I always loved English class because I love reading
Mhm.
books.
Mhm.
I quite like math. I've always been good at math. And as evidence of that, I then went on to do an accounting degree at university because I love numbers. And it's going to sound really super geeky, but I actually really love doing my own bookkeeping and
That's an
things like
amazing
that
scale. If you have the
because
patience for it, yeah, that's amazing. Wow.
yeah, so I like numbers. And I loved art class, art and photography, cooking, sewing, loved sewing, and languages. So I
Mm,
mean, I was an academic kind of kid. I loved it
that's
all.
amazing. That's amazing. All right. So now, looking back at your path, how would you describe your path from your schooling years to now? Would you describe it as being linear? Once you got into one path, it was pretty much straight, smooth sailing, or was it like twist and turn along the way? You had to change direction, careers, and so on and so forth. How would you describe your career, your path
It
so far?
it was so far from linear
Hmm.
that epileptic chicken would probably be the
I like that.
description of that. No, I am, as a multi-potentialite myself,
Hmm.
I have many passions and many things that I want to pursue. And one of the things with multi-potentialites is we're very non-linear. And
Mm,
so I would have to say that to get from where I was as a kid to where I am now, I must have taken the longest, hardest path to get where I am now, that
mhm,
went through so many different twists and turns. But at the end of the day, I think that the journey was all about developing the skill set that makes me
mhm.
perfect for exactly what I'm doing now. And everything that I do with my clients, everything that I am, everything that I believe has been enhanced by every single experience that I've had along the way.
That's amazing. Wow. And I'm sure you've heard the story, the saying, "Change your story, change your life." And by story, I mean the story that we keep on telling ourselves nonstop all day long. So, and when you had to change your story, how did you do it? Did you do it through the help of friends, family, mentors, books? How did you change your story to change your life to get closer to your path?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think it was a confluence of many things. It was some of it absolutely support from friends in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
probably not so much in obvious ways where they said, oh, you should do this, or this is how you should do that. But for example, when we decided before we decided we wanted to move overseas, we'd been through a really very challenging time. There were a number of things happening in our lives at that time that were not great. And my girlfriend, a particular girlfriend, said to me one day, look, you might not be able to build a bridge and get over what's going on now,
Mm-hmm.
but you can choose a different path. And you can think of something else that you've always really, really wanted and take a different road. And that really stuck with me. And it was shortly after having that conversation that I turned to my husband and said to him, look, we've been talking about wanting to go overseas for nearly 20 years now. Ever since we first started dating when we were all of like 18 and 21, we had this dream that we were going to do it. And now here we are. And we have kids who are, in a few short years going to be the same age that we were when we first started dating, and we haven't been anywhere. And I was like, we either need to do it or we need to stop talking about it. And so it was kind of at that point that, I said that, and a few months, and, my husband kept going on with his daily business and whatnot, but it got both of us thinking. And, we both researched, we'd looked into different bits and pieces, and it got to the point where he turned around to me one day and he was like, we're going to move and we're going to do it in about 6 months. And so from then it was on, to change our story, we had to do the research, we had to set our targets and our savings goals, we had to, really prepare and also think about the consequences of like leaving all of our family and friends behind. And, it was not a simple thing. It was not just we thought, hey, you know what, it's going to be great, we're going to move from Australia to Italy. There was so much that went into that. But changing that story about the life that we could have just kept living in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
there was nothing wrong with it. On the outside it was very, kind of white picket fence, living in the same town that my husband had grown up in. My kids were going to the same school he'd gone to as a kid. Half the
Oh,
mums
wow.
in the class were his former classmates that I was friends with. And, like, it was
Yeah.
it was like a white picket fence life, but it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
the life that we wanted.
Sure.
And changing that story and realizing that what we wanted, what was going to light us up, what really made us want to go and explore and do things, was what lit a fire under us. And we had to start taking the action and doing the things. And so I guess in part it was friends, in part it was support from certain family members that helped keep us focused and on track, convince, it's going to be okay, you can do it, like
Mm.
we moved around a lot when you guys were kids, it's totally okay to move overseas, your kids are resilient. But it was the unwavering belief that the decisions we were making were the right ones for our family. I think
Mm-hmm.
that in terms of changing your story, you have to not only want it, but believe that you can have it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the key thing, is that doesn't matter what you want to do, is it's going to be okay. And one of the most powerful thing that, and I had a lady on a podcast on Friday, she mentioned that is we need to ask ourselves about the power of question. And we asked the right question. And I asked her, what was the most difficult question you had to ask yourself? Is that, if I were to go after my dreams, what would be the worst case scenario?
Mm-hmm.
And once you started writing it down, so wow, that doesn't sound that bad. I might lose some
Oh,
money. I might have to go back with my parents for a while. I might even have to, get some roommates for a while. But that's not bad. I'm not gonna die about that. And once she had it clearly in front of her in writing, I said, "Damn, there's nothing stopping me. Why I'm making, as we say in French, a mountain out of a mouse? Just go for it."
Yeah, and that is so true. One of the things that I do love to do is I call it negative consequences and writing out all of those. So, what's the worst that could happen? Because, as
Exactly.
you mentioned, like when you write it down, it suddenly loses its power.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near as scary or as daunting or anything as what you've built it up to be in your mind. And but it's when it's locked away in your heart and you're allowing that fear to rule you and put, like to really clamp its fist around you, you can't actually see how ridiculous those fears are,
Mm-hmm.
because they feel
Absolutely.
like they're everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, when you guys made the move, why Italy? Was there any specific reason? Was it because of job opportunities or just because you always wanted Italy?
Actually, no, it wasn't because we'd always wanted Italy. We had at varying times over the 20 years before that considered Canada was one of them, the US was another, and my husband actually had a job opportunity to do some work in the Czech Republic as well.
Mm,
The reason why we chose Italy is because my mom's dad was Italian and he'd moved to
mm,
Australia after the Second World War, like many Italians did.
sure.
And so the kids and I were able to get Italian citizenship through my mom. Um, and that actually made it a lot easier
Sure.
for us to relocate overseas because my husband was able to get basically permanent residency while he was waiting for his citizenship by marriage to be processed, which actually came through recently after 3.5 years.
Sure.
Um, but we really, there were many factors about why Italy. My husband felt that it would be an easier language to learn than Czech,
Oh,
for
absolutely.
a start. But also because my grandfather was from here, there was that opportunity for the kids to actually, I keep telling people reconnect with their heritage, but the thing was, it was really them connecting with their heritage
Mm-hmm.
because even though they knew that their bisnonno was Italian, they didn't really feel a connection to Italy or being Italian themselves. And so part of it was really wanting to connect with where we came from,
Mm-hmm.
and our own roots, I guess. And we have been to the village that my grandfather was from. That's where we are registered. Like our birth certificates and everything are registered.
Mm-hmm.
We've met family who still live in the village there. But we chose a different city because, as you mentioned before, like if it came to a situation where we needed to look for work. My
Mm-hmm.
husband's a software engineer, and even though he has his own business and has his existing clients, we wanted to be somewhere where if it came to him needing to find additional clients or looking for work with a big company or something, if we were close to Milan or Turin or something, there would be a lot more opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
especially for international workers as well,
Sure.
because at that time we didn't have great Italian language skills. So it was a good opportunity to just kind of hedge our bets. And we loved that Northern Italy was so close to the rest of Europe. So,
Mm-hmm.
from where we are now, in 3 hours, we could be in Switzerland. In 3 hours, we could be in France. In
Mm-hmm.
4 hours, we could be in Venice or Florence or
Absolutely.
Rome. An hour and a half, we could be in the mountains or by the seaside. So the location was really very central
Mm-hmm.
to travel either within Italy or even within Europe. About 5 hours, and we could be in Austria or even Germany in
Mm-hmm.
about 6 hours. So the opportunity to travel and explore not just Italy, but the rest of Europe meant that Northern Italy was one of the best options for us. So that's how we ended up here. Um,
Absolutely.
and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was absolutely the right decision. We love where we've chosen to live, but we also love it here in Italy, and
Mm-hmm.
look forward to being able to explore more as the world reopens again.
Absolutely. How would you compare the cost of living in and around Torino versus in around You said you were in Perth, around that area. Would you say it's about the same? It's about more expensive, cheaper?
If you just look at it dollar for dollar,
Hmm.
the cost of living in Italy is phenomenally cheaper than in Australia.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, if you take into account the exchange rates, it comes
Hmm.
out probably a lot closer to the same, because at the moment the Australian dollar is something like 65 euro cents.
Mm-hmm.
So you you know
Wow.
find that it's almost twice as expensive.
Sure.
Even something that's $1 here would be like $1.65 in Australia or whatnot. So when you
Wow.
look at rents, I mean, even like where we are, you can easily get, I mean, if you were spending 1,200 euros a month, that is quite a high rent for most people. People can, and in like our village here, you're easily spending less than 1,000 euros a month on rent. Well, that 250 Australian dollars a week will not get you anything for a family of four,
It's
in
the same
Australia.
thing here.
Not near a capital city anyway.
It's the same thing here. It's especially here in the big cities in Canada, in Toronto. I was talking with a friend of mine recently. He's renting a studio in a nice area in Toronto. Mind you, not premium, but nice, but for $2,500. Hey, that's absurd. 2,500 for a studio? That's crazy. And I was living in Asia for, I mean, I said I lived in 10 countries in South America and Asia and Europe. But for example, I lived in Asia. Even before that, I was living in Hong Kong, which is one of the most expensive places in the world. Even in Hong Kong, you can get something cheaper than that.
Mm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and even things like the tax on liquor and
Hmm.
alcohol here is completely different than in Australia. In Australia, they have really high liquor taxes, like
Wow.
alcohol and cigarette taxes. And so, for example, you could buy a bottle of Gordon's gin here for less than €10, which is about 16 Australian dollars. But in Australia, that same bottle of gin will cost you about 45 Australian dollars. So
Whoa.
16 to $45,
Three
and that's
times.
just based on taxes. Like that's not that's not the same, you know.
Wow.
So there are some things that are more expensive, but there are
Mm.
some things that weigh out and are significantly cheaper. So uh, overall, I would say on the balance of things, it's probably cheaper here because you can actually get by with
Mhm.
less, and yet the quality of the food and the wine and things like that is absolutely phenomenal for the prices that you're paying.
Sure. One thing that I experienced myself living in all these different countries is that, you know, you get to see where your money goes the further, where you can drastically upgrade the quality of a lifestyle for not even what you're spending here just for basic living, but even for drastically lower, for drastically higher quality. Like for example, as I said, I lived in Thailand, I was in the Philippines. I have lots of friends in Malaysia and Indonesia. And when they tell me things, I cannot believe it. Even myself, for example, in Thailand, I was staying at a brand spanking new hotel for like $500 a month. $500 a month, you will not even get like a parking spot here, you know?
Mm.
So even friends like in Indonesia and Bali, for example, private villa, one bedroom with private swimming pool for like $600 a month. And Kuala Lumpur, first world class, capital city of a major country, civilized, people speak English, amazing infrastructures. You can get like a nice, I mean, for example, nice one bedroom apartment with all the amenities and a brand spanking new condo for like $600 a month. And here you cannot even get anything. It's
That
ridiculous.
That's actually something that it happened a lot in Australia too.
Mhm.
There's a huge mining industry in Western Australia, and they do a lot of fly in, fly out workers with
Mhm.
people on the mines. And airfares within Australia are really quite expensive. Like it will cost you a
Mhm.
minimum of 600 Australian dollars return to get from Perth to Sydney or Perth to Melbourne. But you can fly return to Indonesia and go to Bali for 280, $350 return, for still for an economy class ticket. And then when you factor in the fact that you could be in like a really high quality hotel for $600 for a whole month, the FIFO workers on their week off, they were
Yeah,
living in Indonesia
absolutely.
because it was cheaper, the food, the quality of life,
Much more enjoyable.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, than renting a house in Perth where they were spending like $600 a week living in Perth. And of course, you
man.
can't just only pay for the week that you're at
No,
home. You've
of
also got to
course.
pay for the 3 weeks that you're off on a mine site as well. So,
I know that
um,
life because I used to work myself in the oil fields in Western Canada. Mind you, it's not like it's quite cold there, like minus 40, minus 50. So, and that's another extra, you can call it extra tax on top of the additional taxes. So no, I totally get it. So it's incredible when you, and that's one of the beautiful things about traveling. You realize, hey, you don't have to settle here paying through the nose, crazy tax, horrible weather, at least for Canada, you know, and crazy, laws or incomplete, incompetent government and all that. Or you can easily go to some place where you can drastically. Like I told my cousin, the person I mentioned, this renting a studio for 2,500. I said, listen, for $1,000, you can be renting a baller villa with a private swimming pool, eating amazing food and all that. I mean, and people, when you tell them that, they don't believe it because they haven't experienced it. They have to experience it themselves. Because when you tell them, they think, oh, you're just exaggerating, you're lying, or just looking for attention. I say, no, I'm not. I don't need. I just telling you what I experience, what is possible. You don't have to. You don't have to. Settle for that. You can when you live in a place like that where you can have all your costs covered for, like, say, under $2,000, you live a completely different life. Not because of it's more enjoyable, but also because you reduce your stress by 90%, and then you can really focus on what really matters. And when we really think about that, 95% of all diseases are caused by stress. And when you take that away, you completely drastically increase the quality of life and lifestyle in every area. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I don't understand why more and more people aren't doing it.
I think it is one of the things, I think you touched on it a minute ago. If you haven't traveled and you haven't
Hmm.
experienced it, you don't know that these things are possible. And it's one of the things that I actually hear quite a lot here in Italy from Italians who have traveled and then come back to Italy.
Hmm.
They find it really hard to fit back in with a lot of their family and friends who have never traveled, because all they're focusing on is, the Italian bureaucracy and, all of the things that they don't love about Italy. And they're not appreciating the things that are really
Hmm.
great about Italy. One of the questions that we get asked all the time is, why on earth did you move here from Australia? Because all they want to do is they want to go to Australia.
I
They
get it
see
all
it
the
as like,
time.
yeah, like, why would you leave there? And I'm like, why wouldn't you move to Italy? Like, the grass is always greener on the other side, and
Hmm.
the attitude that you bring into it is going to determine what you get out of it. And so, if you're telling somebody, hey, for $1,000 a month, you could have this amazing 5-star villa in Bali with food included and all of this stuff, and somebody's like, yeah, that's never going to happen. Of course, it's never going to happen for them because they don't believe that it's possible for them. And they're probably also going to feel trapped and boxed in where they currently are and only see the negatives in that as well.
It's so funny you mentioned that because I get that all the time, all the time. I can't tell you how many times I'm even getting to a point of arguing with them because they even literally tell me, did you lose your mind? Because people from these countries, especially Asia, they would they would kill to get a chance to come to Canada. But you're Canadian, you live in Canada, and you want to go there? What's wrong with you? They can't even imagine that. Hey, you can you can live a much more enjoyable lifestyle. Especially, it's about reducing the stress. Not so much about reducing your cost of living. That helps, but it's mostly about reducing your stress because, as I said, 90% of all the diseases are stress related. And if you can remove the stress from your life, you can be much more productive. You can be much more, you can do what you really want to do and have a bigger impact.
And that, what you just said there, is absolutely pivotal, because when you remove the stress, when we moved here to Italy,
Mm,
everything slowed down, right? The pace of life here was completely different. Like they still close supermarkets and a lot of shops at 12 o'clock so that they can go
mhm.
home and have lunch, and then things don't reopen until 3.
I love
So
that.
adjusting to that rhythm and that pace, instead of everything being frenetic and
Hmm.
hurried and rushed. And probably for me, this is one of the things that has really allowed me to align with the way that what I do in my coaching, and how I try and, I guess, counsel others to create that space to slow down
Hmm.
so that they can speed up, is because I've lived it, that process of slowing down, of getting rid of the stress, of welcoming in the gratitude, of being able to see beauty everywhere, of learning how to release and forgive and let go of the things that actually don't even matter,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
like actually becoming aware that they don't matter
You know,
is pivotal.
as I mentioned to you before we going live, is people are chasing the wrong things. They're chasing material things, or just trying to keep up with the Joneses, or trying to get on the rat race. You know, I've been there. I've had the corporate gig, paying for the expensive house and all that, but no, I don't want that anymore. I don't want the 60, 80 hour stress for what? Because, especially during this pandemic, especially I've been at home for the past year taking care of my father or my sister, you really get to realize what's really important. First, it's our health, then our time, and then our relationships. Money doesn't even come, I mean, sure, it's important, we need it, but it's nowhere near to be among the top three. Because if you don't have any of these three, health, time, or family, money is not going to help you. What is good $1 billion if you only have a month to live?
Yeah,
Ask
exactly.
Steve Jobs, one of the most wealthiest people in the world that I really admire, but he had to go because his money wasn't able to save him, for
Yeah.
example. So, and when you get to see that, you realize that, hey, you focus your mind into impact and into following your heart. And when you do that, you're not you don't want to follow, you don't care about the material things anymore.
And this is one of the things that when you actually ask yourself, there, like there's a fabulous coaching question that people use about asking, if money didn't matter, what would you do? Like, what would you do
Mm,
with your life? How would you spend your time? What would you do
yeah.
for work? Like, if you took money out of the equation, what would you do and how would you spend your time? And I think when we can actually lean in and really answer that honestly, because of course most people's initial response is, oh well, like if money didn't matter, I would, sit in my undies all day and watch Netflix and eat chocolate and like whatever. Yeah, but after you've done all of that, then what are you going to do to fill in the rest of the time for the rest of forever? Because that's what's going to matter. And if you can tap into that and work out what that why is, you were talking earlier about finding your why or finding your purpose, which reminds me of that Simon Sinek book, you start with why. If you can
Hmm.
really lean into what it is that you would do if nothing else mattered, if all things were equal and money
Hmm.
didn't matter, what would you do with your time? How would you spend it? What would you want to achieve? Like if
Absolutely.
you found out you only had 6 months left to live, how would you choose to spend that time? That's going to give you phenomenal answers about what really truly matters to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all, we should live each day as if it were the last day. Another question is, how would you live today if you knew that this would be your last day? You would live it completely different. You wouldn't worry about that annoying boss or annoying client or whatever. You would focus on what really matters, which is yourself, your health, your family, and doing something that you really want to do. Because
Yeah.
the people that are on the deathbed, the number one regret in life is what they didn't do. They wish I had done that, and that's one thing that I will do whatever I can not to have any regrets in life.
Yeah.
So
And They said that I've heard that before, that you regret more the things that you didn't do in life than the things that you did.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And, you know, choosing to take that chance and step out of that comfort zone and try, even if
Hmm.
you fail spectacularly, at least you get to look back and say, well, you know what? At least I tried. At least I did it.
And ask yourself, what is the worst that can happen? The worst can happen, okay, I might have to move with my parents. I might have to get some live with some roommates. I might have to eat ramen and noodles for a while. So what? If you're not willing to pay that price, then you don't deserve to follow your dreams. You know what I mean? Because that's a very, very tiny price to pay in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. Um, and, there is always somebody, like we are always often looking ahead to where we wish we could be,
Hmm.
that we forget that there's somebody else behind us wishing that they could be where we are.
Oh yeah, your worst day, somebody would kill to be in your shoes because someone we take something f- as simple as what we're gonna eat today for lunch or for dinner, where we're gonna sleep. For us, it's not even a question anymore. But for some people, that's a daily challenge, daily survival challenge, and these people would die even to get an a day in our shoes. So that's how I always. The first thing I do in the morning and the last thing I do before sleeping is always count my blessings. You know, because so sometimes you don't even have that. People, still people in today's age, they don't have that. But oh wow, that's an amazing conversation. That's what I love about talking with these enlightened entrepreneurs, enlightened souls, and true leaders with a heart like you. Because, and I can feel that even though it's the first time we talk, we can keep going on for hours and hours, but we gotta keep moving. So one thing I noticed when you mentioned that when you were in school, you loved reading. Are you still a reader?
Yes. It's actually funny how crazy we are about
Mm,
reading. Um, we we love books so much in our house that when we destashed virtually all of our non-essential possessions to move overseas, we didn't bring any furniture at all. We
mm-hmm,
bought obviously computers with us. We did bring our TVs, but we mostly it was like clothing and linen and kitchenware and books. Like we ended up destashing, like I had an SUV. We destashed my SUV full of books to the secondhand bookstore before we left, which is
wow.
actually, like, we calculated, it's actually more than the average person owns in books at all, was what we were getting rid of, and that was not even a
Wow.
quarter of what we had.
Mm-hmm,
um, but since we've been here, we've also bought more books. So one of the first pieces of furniture we bought when we got here was actually, we bought 5 bookshelves. And I told my husband at the time, I was like, I think we need 7. And he was like, no, no, we'll just start with 5. And we still have boxes of books that we haven't unpacked because then the pandemic hit and we didn't actually go back and buy the extra bookshelves. But yeah,
yeah.
so no, still an avid reader, voracious reader. I have some
Awesome.
books that I have in hard copy, in
Mm-hmm,
paperback, and on my Kindle and on
mm-hmm,
audiobook because that's how
mm-hmm.
much I love them. So yes, absolutely
Awesome.
crazy about reading.
All right, so let me ask you a question about that. So what would you say, what book have you read of the past year that has had the biggest impact on your life?
Oh, the biggest impact on my life would probably be, and this might sound a little bit crazy, it's a book called, there are 2 actually, if I can list 2. One of them was Get Rich, Lucky Bitch by Denise Duffield Thomas, who's an Australian author.
I
Um,
did.
and it's all about money mindset. And she talks about
Mm-hmm,
like decluttering your mental
mm-hmm,
thoughts and your negative beliefs, the same way that you would Marie Kondo your possessions,
mm-hmm,
amongst other things. And as we entered into the pandemic, and I was really having to look at how I was going to pivot my business, because I've been looking at working predominantly with expat women here in Turin in a physical face-to-face capacity. And then we went into lockdown for 3 months. So that was
mm-hmm.
not a possibility. And so I pivoted into online. Um, reading her book and going through the exercises on that was actually really phenomenal in helping me to shift my money mindset and not see the
Mhm.
pandemic as killing my business or any of those things, which I know a lot of people really struggled with, particularly at the beginning. Um, and the second one is Light is the New Black by Rebecca Campbell, who is
Mm.
also an Australian girl, but she lives in Glastonbury in the UK now. And her book is really aimed at like people who are going through their spiritual awakening and realizing that they're light workers, and talking about different ways that the light shows up within you. And that again, I was experiencing a spiritual reawakening. So it wasn't
Mhm.
just an awakening, but it was more like awakening what had been sleeping for quite some time. And reading her book, and so she's of a similar age to me, and so she references things that happened in Australian history in the 1990s that I remember very strongly, that also impacted me. And so in many ways, reading that book was like having somebody write the words straight out of my soul only 5 years before I realized that those
Mhm.
words were
Wow.
there. So probably those two books were the most life-changing for me during
Awesome.
the last 12
Awesome.
months.
And if I may suggest one book, this book has literally changed my life. Start Something That Matters by Blake Mycoskie. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't.
Have you heard of the Tom's shoes?
Yeah.
So basically, this
Yeah, I
guy,
have.
Blake Mycoskie, back in 2006, was traveling in Argentina. And while he was there in the suburbs of Buenos Aires, he noticed kids running around with no shoes. And he asked, so why are these kids not in school and instead just running around with no shoes? And he was told that in Argentina, to be able to go to school, you have to be able to get to buy the uniform and shoes. And these kids are not able to afford that. So he asked one question again, the power of questions: how can I help? So what he did, he took these traditional Argentinian flat shoes made of kind of leather. So he took that and made a more sturdy version. And for each, and he took them with him to the U.S. And for each one, each pair he would sell, he would donate a pair of those shoes to kids in Argentina. So long story short, between 2006 2011, he built the fastest growing shoe company in the world, competing with the likes of Nike, Adidas, and all those global brands, with zero outside investment. He grew a company from zero to $500,000 in sales in that time frame. And the most beautiful thing is, in that time, he was able to, he was able to give away over 100 million pairs of shoes to kids worldwide.
Wow.
Think about,
That's
talk about
amazing.
impact. And on top of that, back in 2012 or 13, he sold half of his company for a cool $330 million. And the next day, he gave half to charity, and the rest he put it in a trust fund to help other people that are looking to build impactful businesses. So that book literally changed my life. That's where I get my inspiration. I need to build something, and that's a book I highly recommend to everyone. It tells you about how you can build a business that actually matters, that makes a difference. Because again, if you're only chasing money, you're not going to be fulfilled. But if you're chasing a passion, if you align your business with a cause, not only it's going to give you the most important thing, which is purpose, passion, but also it's going to make your business completely competition proof, because competition will become irrelevant once you have an actual, cause that you strongly, relate with, your clientele relates with. And in that case, competition is no longer an issue. So I highly recommend you read that. It's called Start Something That Matters by Blake Mycoskie. Again, on Amazon for like $20, something like that. So very, very, you know, inspiring book.
Oh, I look forward to checking it out. It sounds
All
amazing.
right. All right. Beautiful. Wow. It's been almost an hour now, but we haven't even started talking about your business. So tell us about your business. What do you do? That's what I said. I want to talk to know the person more than the business. So now let's talk about your business. What do you do?
So I am a moon manifestation coach and multi-potentialite coach, and I predominantly work with multi-passionate entrepreneurs who want to break free of the masculine business paradigms and flourish as they succeed in life and business on their own terms. So I'm all about helping my clients reconnect with their intuition, harnessing the energetics of the moon cycles, balancing their divine masculine and feminine energies, and helping them become perfectly aligned to manifest the crap out of their dreams while living vibrant, balanced, joy-filled lives that they love.
Mhm.
So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what I do.
Awesome. So, what would you say is your ideal client avatar? I understand you mentioned women, but any specific women, any specific age group, any specific industry?
Well, really, like when I say multi-passionate or multi-potentialite, that is like for women who recognize that that's what they are, it's
Hmm.
quite specific in and of itself because they often find that they struggle with the same kinds of things, fear of disappointing others, feeling like they're unreliable or not cut out for this. They struggle with imposter syndrome. They feel like they are good at lots of little things, but never an expert in any one
Hmm.
area. But I guess if you want to talk demographics, most of the clients that I work with are probably between about 25 and 40.
Hmm.
But I do have clients, like my youngest client is 20, and my most experienced client is in her mid 60s. So, I don't really like to talk demographics because it's less about the age group that you're in and more about your your vibe and your energy.
Hmm.
For a long time before I realized that the common thread between all of my clients was that they were all multi-passionate. It was about the energetic match. And, that was really hard to define because how do you put, like, I work with
Hmm.
clients who are an energetic match. Like it's not really self-identifying, but yeah, multi-passionate entrepreneurs because, being a woman in business who really can wear all of the hats, which many women do anyway. We're doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, especially if we've got kids or whatever, we have skills in lots of different diverse areas. And particularly when you want to do all of the things and you have such a diverse skill set throughout your career or throughout your passions and your interests, it's finding how you can bring all of those things together and synthesize all of those things into something that is the exact definition of who you are, right? Um, and often we discount those little things because they don't seem important to us and we don't see ourselves the way that other people see us. We are
Awesome.
these beautiful, multifaceted crystals.
Awesome. What is the structure of your program? Is it like more like one on one? Is it like small groups, big groups? Is it like a 30-day program, 90 days? Or is it like ongoing? Tell us more about the structure of your program.
So the majority of my coaching is done one-to-one, and
Mm-hmm.
I take clients on for an initial contract of about 4 months because I think really to get the kinds of results that most
Mm-hmm.
people are looking for, you need to have time to really start digging into, especially with things like mindset. There is a lot to untangle and unwind, and that takes time. It's not a quick fix, it's not an overnight. And I do find that clients quite often end up renewing um, after that 4 month period because there's still more work to do. I am, however, just about to launch with another business bestie of mine who is also a shamanic moon priestess. The two of us are combining our moon coaching powers, and we're launching a beautiful energetic container for 12 women in a high-level mastermind, where we will be really, working with women in business who are struggling with being a success on paper, but not really embodying it, not really feeling like they've achieved, they can see that they've achieved the success, but they don't feel the success. They don't feel like they've integrated who they are and what they're meant to be doing, and they're not living the lifestyle that they thought they would get to. And it really doesn't matter if that was, getting to be a six-figure business owner, or whether it's signing up X number of clients, or it doesn't matter where you're at in your business journey. It's whatever target that you had set that you thought success was, and you get there and you still don't feel successful. What we are doing is creating this energetic container to bring these women together and create the space for them to slow down, to get curious, to really lean into their intuition and the calling of their soul, so that they can actually replenish and rejuvenate and reconnect and realign, so that they can create those quantum leaps in their businesses. They can do it, but we're not teaching business skills. We're not going out there we're not teaching business coaching. We are teaching you to align with the energetic cycles of the moon, and throughout the year, the seasons and, those inherent cycles within ourselves, and looking at our own energetic cycles and creating that safe space where you can be vulnerable and allow yourself that opportunity to up level in a different kind of way. And so I'm really excited about that, because we are launching that. We're accepting enrollments starting in August, and we'll be kicking off in September for that. So it's really exciting for us.
How many do you want to have in your class? Do you have a limit, or?
So we are taking a maximum of 12 women. So it's going to be really small and intimate. Because there are the two of us, we'll be meeting twice a month at the new and at the full moon. So at the new moon, we will be doing like a circle of wisdom call, where we are doing the planning. We are doing that, allowing that opportunity to discuss as a group and hold space for each other, to talk about what we're struggling with, or the intentions that we want to set. And then at the full moon, we come together in more ceremony and ritual, and actually allow ourselves to release and let go of the things. So it's that opportunity to come together in a group with zero expectations of anybody else, but just to be. And then during the circle of wisdom calls at the new moon, we'll actually then also split into smaller groups. So my girlfriend and I will then take half, so it'll be a maximum of 6 people sort of in each group, where we will then actually have that opportunity to dive deeper, because everyone has more time to speak, and then we'll come back together as a group and reflect on everything that has come up during the session. So very small, very intimate container, and we're looking for really very specific women who are prepared to carve out that time and that space to help themselves integrate and align with the women that they want to become.
And these are women from all over the world?
Yeah, so my business partner and I, so she's based in Scotland at the moment. I'm obviously based in Italy. And yes, so, these days, location is no barrier. Time zones are more of a barrier than location.
Yes.
So yes, absolutely open to anybody, anywhere in the world.
Okay, wonderful. Tell us about the most remarkable example of transformation you've seen from your clients going through your program.
Oh, so one of my clients that I am still currently working with, we've been together for over a year now. When she first contacted me a couple of months into the pandemic. She was really struggling with anxiety. She had a fledgling coaching business as well that she was trying to get off the ground. But she was feeling incredibly overwhelmed by all of the tech that goes into it and all of the fear and the panic about COVID and things like that, and was really actually struggling quite a bit with her mental health and anxiety. And so she came to me because what she was looking for was a safe space to keep her focused and work through the strategies to allow her to take those steps forward. And, you know, within a few short weeks of working together, she'd really started to flourish already. She was getting a handle on the tech. But towards the end of the summer last year, she realized that she didn't want to do business the way everyone was telling her to. You know, she was being encouraged left, right, and center to create a funnel and have a freebie and, you know, put her course on like Kajabi and do all of these things. And she actually wasn't there yet. It felt like too much pressure. You know, she had a small Facebook group of about 50 people, and she just really felt like it was taking all of the joy out of the way that she wanted to serve her clients. And she didn't need me to, but I gave her the permission and the space to say, you know, it's okay if you need to put it down and walk away and take the time. And by allowing herself to do that, she actually reconnected with her why she was doing it, the women she wants to help, because the kind of coaching she does is with women who have previously been in victims of domestic violence and who really need to rebuild their self-belief and their self-worth, because it's something that, you know, they've almost literally had beaten out of them. And so she really reconnected with that, and opportunities, she started manifesting subconsciously, you know, like once she recognized that she didn't have to do what everyone was telling her she had to do in business, and she stopped and took the time and the space, she allowed herself to start manifesting. And she's also got a book that's actually just about to be released later on, and she's starting to write a new one. So she participated in an art project. She started telling her story about her own journey, and now she started connecting with new clients and new opportunities to collaborate, and everything has finally started to come full circle for her in ways she couldn't have imagined. And we were talking recently about how the woman she was 12 months ago would not even recognize the woman that she is today.
Of course.
Because it would never have occurred to her that where she is now was even possible, because she was being too narrow-minded about what she thought success and being a coach had to look like. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the most powerful transformations, has been watching her flourish and succeed in life and business on her own terms.
Absolutely,
and
because
it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I can imagine, because success is not about reaching a milestone in terms of sales or whatever. It's about the most invaluable thing in success is, sure, the money is nice, but it's ultimately the person you become, the journey. That's the most powerful thing, and that's something that a lot of people seem to miss. And you know, it's cliche to say success starts here. It's 90% mindset. A lot of people will laugh at it. A lot of people, when they read a business book, some of them will just skip all the mindset part and go straight to the business, not understanding that, hey, if you don't have a foundation, then you're just building a house on the sand, you know. So it's not going to last. So yeah, absolutely agree with that.
And that's it. If we don't integrate what we've learned and what we've read, it means nothing, because without the mindset, as you said, there is no foundation. because
Yeah.
it's the mindset that's going to get you through when things get hard, when you reach those challenges, because you've
Hmm.
built a solid framework to get there.
Yeah. Totally. You know, you mentioned something that really caught my attention. You said you help women to get more in touch with the feminine side. So, me as a man, I want to know, how can we men get closer or in touch with our inner feminine side in order to live a more balanced life? Do you have any tips for me and for us men watching right
Yeah.
now?
Well, so when I talk about masculine and feminine, I'm not even talking about it in terms of men and women, because we
Hmm.
all have masculine and
Absolutely.
feminine energies within us. And
Absolutely.
the masculine energies show up as, logic and reason. They show up as, planning, all of that left brain
Hmm.
kind of thing is very masculine driven, whereas the feminine energies are more about intuition and allowing and
Hmm.
emotion, and really just almost like going with the flow, but tapping into that creative flow and that creativity. And so whether you're a man or a woman, being able to really just allow yourself to let that part of you step up and take equal place side by side with logic and reason is is amazing. And so I guess perhaps many men, depending on where you come from in the world and what your cultural situation and background is like, find that they have been raised to suppress their emotions because it's not manly to cry, or it's not appropriate to, to show weakness or things like
Show
that. And I think
emotions. Yeah.
the
Hmm.
the thing with the feminine energy is that emotion isn't weakness. Emotion is
Absolutely.
actually strength, because when we can acknowledge if we're feeling angry, if we're feeling sad, if we're feeling joy, if we're feeling love, if we know and we're in touch with those things, that is power. It's a different kind of power, but it is power.
You know, emotions is being authentic, being transparent when I see it. And again, as I said earlier, people want to connect with people they can relate and trust. One of the best ways to do so is by displaying your emotions openly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Something you said earlier reminded me another book I really enjoyed reading last year was Positive Intelligence by Shazad Shamin. I don't know
Hmm.
if you've ever come across that one,
I'll check
but
it
I
out.
actually did some of he ran some coach training last year. I think you would love him because something that you echoed earlier about raising the collective consciousness and really being so much more community minded,
Hmm.
and ways that we can help others, is one of the things that he's super passionate about as well. And so he
Hmm.
actually, like his methodology, he works predominantly in like the corporate sector, but he's very much into mindfulness and meditation, and he's very in touch with his spiritual side as well. So, in terms of balancing masculine and feminine energies, he's doing that, and he's spreading his light in ways where he is empowering other people, in this case other coaches, with the skill set to then
Hmm.
help and empower other people. And so his particular methodology, which I really super love, is all about recognizing like our saboteurs, the things that cause us to self-sabotage, to judge ourselves and or others harshly, the things that, why we might be people pleasers, or why we might be hyper rational, or, he breaks it down into about 10 different types, but how we can then recognize and shift those things and turn them into gifts of knowledge, inspiration, and power, and actually turn those things that might actually have been fears into gifts that we can then harness and use. And I
Absolutely.
think
Wow.
that's amazing.
Absolutely, it is. Wow. I will definitely have to rewatch this myself because you've been dropping lots of value bombs. I'll definitely I will watch it myself again. So thank you for that. Wow. So what I love most about doing this podcast is, connecting with incredible like-minded people, but also learning a lot because I'm learning every day and I love it. So it's part of my ongoing, spiritual awakening as a human being and to who I'm really, to who I'm really am and not just this one-dimensional, three-dimensional physical body. We're much more than that. We're eternal spiritual beings, having a temporary physical experience. And once we really understand that, then it changes your entire approach to everything.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. And
Mhm.
I think one of the things, particularly that people struggle with in the spiritual community, is that feeling of wanting to self transcend,
Mhm.
but where they forget to ground themselves and recognize that we might be spiritual beings, but we are here in this life to have a human experience.
Here for a
And
purpose and a mission to complete.
exactly. And we chose to come here and to be here at this
Absolutely.
time in this place and to live this life. And,
Totally.
it's so important for us to really ground ourselves and
Mhm.
allow ourselves to lean into that mission and that purpose.
Absolutely. Wow. Let me ask you something about something that's very important in business about mentors. Have you had a mentor yourself?
Oh, I've had lots of mentors, some in paid capacities, some in non-paid capacities, some in aspirational capacities.
Mhm.
Um, So I was lucky enough, as I mentioned, to do some training under Shazad Shamin, and he is amazing. Like, he loves to co-create with his coaches, and he's absolutely inspirational. In terms of like my moon coaching business, working with Yasmin Boland, who
Mhm.
is an astrologer, and she's like the mother of Moonology as a methodology. She literally wrote the book on it. Has also been absolutely phenomenal and amazing to get to work with her. And starting from, last year, I actually managed to manifest an opportunity where I won a competition to win a personal destiny reading with her. And at the
Wow.
time, I didn't realize just how much that was going to change my life. And I then went on to study under her and train with her, and have been lucky enough to have her, even shout me out to her audience, which is amazing because she has like 40,000 followers on Facebook.
Wow.
Um, but I'm also really super blessed to work under it within Denise Duffield Thomas's mastermind group as well, her Money Bootcamp group, which is all about allowing women this space to really explore money stories and the root of why we believe what we believe and what holds us
Mhm.
back, and breaking ancestral chains and all sorts of things in there, like anything to do with money and mindset and exploration. There is so much shadow work to do that it has just absolutely been a transformative experience. Um, I could go on, but there are three of my three of my favorite
Yeah.
examples from this.
I want to ask you about something that you just mentioned that I'm very curious. What is a destiny reading?
So
Is that the same
Yasmin,
as is that the same as say an Akashic record reading? That-
Um, so Yasmin works predominantly in like astrology and moonology. So she was looking at my astrological birth chart, but also looking at the transits and things, and looking at what was coming up that I was
Mhm.
talking about doing. And she was giving me some great tips on timing and insights on, she was one of the people who said, look, coaching is an amazing career for you. Like, this is
Mhm.
exactly what you are brilliant at in life. This is really where your zone of genius lies. And then she gave me a bunch of tips on how I could enhance certain parts of my business or my life. And she's like, this timing is going to be really great for you. And if you can get this in place by then, this is going to be really transformative. And Yeah, so it was really much more astrologically based than Akashic Records. I have had a number of Akashic Records readings with different
Wow.
readers who are absolutely phenomenal, and I have gotten so much value out of each of those. But yeah, and I now offer, having trained under Yasmin, I am one of her certified moonologists, and I do moonology readings for people as well. So it's one
What
of
is a
the one-off
Moonology reading?
services. So a moonology reading is where I would take your birth chart, for example, and we would walk through it and look at the placement of your astrological houses, what each house represents in terms of what part of your what facet of your life it represents, and how the flavor of the zodiac sign that is in charge of that house actually influences it and may show up in your life. And then after we've done all of that, which quite often brings so many clients those, oh my goodness, I, like that explains why, I always thought that I was a Gemini, except when it comes to money, because, I, it just didn't fit. But now it does, because when you explain that actually, Leo is in my second house of cash and property and finance, it shows why I'm so bold and courageous. And I'm really ambitious, and, like I love making these decisions around money, but it, didn't really fit with who I thought I was as a Gemini, or whatever. And then after we kind of go through and have this little mind-blowing moment about how I can tell you all about your personality without having specifically met you before, but just by going through your birth chart, we then look at the energetic cycles of the moon that are coming up for the next 12 months. And I show you how you can take the energies from your chart, your birth chart, and apply that to how you choose to manifest with the moon. So how you set your intentions at the new moon, and what you choose to release and let go, and what you want to focus on in terms of the emotional baggage that you no longer want to carry based on those energies, so that you can really up level and shift the way that you manifest and focus and show up in your life and your business. And it really does have, it might sound a little bit woo and a little bit crazy to people who aren't really into that kind of thing, but it actually makes so much sense. Like, there is so much goodness in there, and it's, again, sort of one of those lost arts. And when you start looking into things like astrology versus astronomy, they used to be two sides of the same coin. Historically, when back in the Renaissance and even further back than that, astronomy was the study of the stars and astrology was the study of the planets, right?
Same thing,
It's
yeah.
it's not rocket science, but as we kind of came up and through it, that sort of division, and especially with things like the Roman Catholic Church and whatnot, oh no, that must be witchcraft. And so it becomes a pseudoscience, while astronomy is widely accepted as being, like legit science. But the more time that I spend looking into it and dealing with people and going through people's charts, the more that I see the same things coming up for people in different ways, when, like the patterns are there, if you're willing to look at them. There is method to the madness.
So if I were to tell you just briefly, I understand this might take a lot more time, but if I were to tell you I'm a Libra, October 17, what can you tell me about myself? Just
Okay,
right
so
off the top.
do you happen to know your rising sign at all, or your ascendant?
I'll have to look into that.
Okay, so a Libra as a sun sign or as a star sign is an air sign. So Libra is very much about balance and harmony. So your sun sign generally represents the ego and your essential self. So the kind of person that you are, you can probably see both sides to every story, and you pride yourself on being impartial, and you like things to be balanced and harmonious. Perhaps, though, sometimes because you can see both sides of the equation, you might find it hard to make decisions and struggle with a little bit of that action paralysis, kind of indecisiveness. Yeah.
Bingo. Oops. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's just a little taste of it for you. If you ever find out your rising sign, let me know, and then I can walk you through your houses as well. Because
Awesome.
the rising sign
Where would I
is,
find it out?
so there are plenty of free astrological birth chart websites on the internet, and all you need to know is the date, the time, and the place you were born. And so the reason that the rising sign differs, so the sun is what constellation the sun as a planet was in at the time of your birth, and the sun moves quite slowly, so it's in each zodiac sign for about a month, which is why, if you're a Libra, it goes from sort of mid-September to mid-October, right? The moon moves through each sign of the zodiac each month, and it only spends about 2.5 days in any particular sign. But the rising sign was the constellation that was coming up over the eastern horizon at the moment that you were born, in the place where you were born. So even if somebody on the opposite side of the world was born at the exact same moment as you, their rising sign will be different because their location is different, and a different constellation will be coming up over their eastern horizon.
So you said I need to find my rising sign, the date,
so it might show up.
place.
Yeah, so it might show up as an ascendant instead of rising sign. It just depends on the thing.
I'll definitely look into that.
Yeah, so the Moonology readings are quite in depth, and they take about 90 minutes from start to finish.
Oh, wow.
So we do deep dive right into it, and you walk away with a really clear understanding of how you can, at the very next new moon or full moon, so maximum of 2 weeks from the session, what you can do to implement it straight away, which is really part of the integration part of things, because it's not just knowing the things, it's applying them and integrating them straight away. And then we finish just for a little bit of fun with an oracle, a 3-card oracle reading, just to see.
Do you have any information on that on your website so I can dig in after?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're on my website, it's www.vibrantcoach.com, and if it's /Moonology. So that will have the details about the Moonology readings on there. And if you would like to find out more about my moon coaching, multi-potentialite coaching, that is under online-coaching. So vibrantcoach.com /online-coaching.
I'll definitely read up on that, because that's something that, I'm fascinated by everything that is about knowing myself and getting, so I can become a better person, and so I can have a better and bigger impact. So it's all about that. Speaking of impact, the theme of this podcast is people that are building businesses with a heart. Like for me, as I said, I'm going to be launching soon a physical product on a crowdfunding site. For each unit I sell, I will be donating a pair of eyeglasses to someone that needs them but cannot afford them. What would you say, you, Tracey, as a cause that is dear to your heart?
Oh, I am really passionate about empowering women in business, because I think that the more women who are successful in business and who have access to money, the more good that they will do in the world. In terms of charitable causes that I'm passionate about, I am actually really passionate about breast cancer. There are a number of women in my life who have had either personally struggled and lost, or who have had mothers or sisters who have struggled with breast cancer. And I think that it is something that, even though we do an awful lot of research about it, there is still far too many women who are struggling with it as a disease. And it's something that, we're all vulnerable. Even men can get breast cancer. It's not just limited to women. We just don't talk, men just don't talk about getting breast cancer as often.
That would be kind of embarrassing, yeah. But but it
Yeah.
shouldn't be. I know it shouldn't be. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Hmm. All right. Now let me ask you to finish off because I mean we can keep going for hours, but we need to stop because it's been over 2 hours almost. So I'm not going to take you for much longer. But just for some fun question, um, if you, imagine you add a time machine and you could meet and sit with your 18-year-old self, what would be the number one piece of advice you would give to your 18-year-old self?
If I could go back and talk to my 18-year-old self, I would probably really, really try and urge her to let her freak flag fly more, to lean into the things that make her unique and not
Mm,
try and fit in and be vanilla and beige and mainstream. Because, in fairness, at that time in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was all about conformity and fitting in, whereas
mhm.
now we have evolved to want to stand out and be
Absolutely.
unique. But I do wish I could go back and tell her that those things that are making her stand out, that she thinks are a disadvantage, are actually the things that make her special.
Absolutely. It's all about
And if she could tap
differentiation.
into that earlier,
Mhm.
maybe, it wouldn't have taken 20 years to finally work that out for herself.
Absolutely. Love that. Now, do you have your own podcast?
I don't have it yet. I am actually, it's on my list of things to do, and I have been planning it. I will be launching a podcast
Mhm.
called Divine Feminine Rising in
Love that.
the next month or two. I'm still just getting my stuff sorted about
Mhm.
how I want that to look and what I really want it to look like. But yes, it is on the cards, and I know what I want it to be. I just have to actually
Fantastic. Now,
make it
imagine
happen.
that. Let's move forward. Imagine your podcast is flourishing, and today you have the most amazing guest in the world, which is yourself on your own podcast. What would be the number one question you want to ask yourself? I don't want you to think too much. What is the first question that comes to your mind that you want to ask yourself?
I was actually thinking about this earlier today, thinking about the kinds of questions I wanted to ask my guests. And one of them was really about how I wanted to ask my guests, so how I would want to ask myself, what is it that they would want to tell other women about how they can tap into their divine feminine, um, and how they could really integrate that better in their
Mhm.
lives.
Wow, love that. Hmm.
Mm.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. What is your superpower?
My superpower is being able to listen to what people are saying and reflect it back to them in ways that holds a mirror up for them and shows them things that they couldn't see for themselves about themselves. Um,
Yes, because we all need some time, a fresh pair of eyes to look at something that we take for granted, but there might be something unique that just for someone else to just maybe point it out. Something that's
yeah.
obvious for us that we don't, it's just hiding in plain sight. Yes, absolutely. And I will actually tell you something after this call that I noticed that could be an amazing, amazing, how can I put it? Amazing niche for you based on our conversation, what I've found out about you today. I will tell you this after this call. That is so obvious for me, but maybe for you but I will tell you after
Oh,
that.
you've got me curious.
I know, huh? All right. So, what is the smallest thing you've done that has had the biggest impact on your life and business?
The smallest thing I've done that has had the biggest impact on my life and business is forgiveness,
Love that.
letting go of
Yes.
just all the things, the things that don't matter, the things that we think matter until we realize that they don't matter, the
I
things that we
love
don't
that.
need to carry forward with us because the only person that we're actually hurting is ourselves.
Absolutely. It hurts our growth and our progression. Absolutely. Now imagine that God were to come to you and say, Tracy, you've been an amazing human being. I want to reward you I will appoint you as the president of planet Earth. What would you do differently today to make the world a better place?
Oh my goodness. I'm not really sure that I'd want to be president of planet Earth because,
Maybe not president, but leader, whatever.
yeah, politics seems like a really thankless job. But I guess if I were in a position to influence people globally on a global scale, which I think really is what you're suggesting, I guess the first thing I would change to make things better would probably be to encourage people to listen more than they speak.
I agree, because God gave us one mouth and two ears because we need to listen twice as much as speaking. If we need to speak twice as much, we'd have two mouths, maybe one here or whatever.
I don't know. Some people talk out their ass, so I think they already do it.
Yes, that is very true. Well, those people have only two mouths. Maybe we need a third one, or maybe one is enough for them. All right. What parting tips would you have for people listening to this, and just in general speaking?
Listen to the nudges. If you are feeling called to do something or to say something, or you are feeling that you are being led in a particular direction, stop ignoring it. Because most people ignore the nudges. They push them aside. They don't take action on them. And that inaction and that decision to do nothing, or that people think that not making a decision is not making a decision, but not choosing is still making a decision. You're just making a decision to not do the thing that you're trying very hard not to choose between. So listening to that intuition, really, being aware and present of that conflict within you between what you think you should do and what you are really being called to do is going to start changing your life. Just listening is going to start changing your life.
Yeah, we need to listen. I totally agree with you. To listen more to our your nudges, your intuition, sometimes you just listen. You're just walking, or even taking a shower, or just sitting with your friends talking. You get an idea. That idea is not coming to you by luck. It's a communication directly from God, your soul, the universe, and when they come, we need to pay attention to them, because when our soul and God talks to us, because our soul, our subconscious mind, has two rules: one, to guide us and to protect us. And when they're telling us something, it's our best interest. So we better need to listen. I totally agree with you, because this idea of the product that I mentioned to you earlier, I don't want to disclose it yet until it goes live. But that idea I added, believe it or not, first while reading this book, and second of all, I wanted to start something, a business to give, but the actual product I had it while I was just sitting at a dinner table, just having dinner with family. We're talking, chit-chatting, and all of a sudden, hey, why don't you do this? Out of the blue. My mind was not even into it, just, chit-chatting with family, and like this.
Yeah, all of my great ideas all come when my hands are wet and I cannot do anything about it, or my hands are busy. It'll come in the shower, it'll come when I'm washing dishes, or it'll come when I'm driving the car.
Yes,
anytime when I am physically incapable of taking notes and writing it down for later.
So what do you pause and take a note, or what?
Sometimes I had one of those moments today where I actually physically had to stop what I was doing, and I ran and grabbed a notebook and I scribbled notes down, because otherwise what happens is that I forget. And that happened to me, I think about 2 days ago. I had this amazing idea. It was like this divine download that came, and I hopped up and I went to type it up on my computer, or I went to grab my phone or something. And instead of writing it down straight away, I started scrolling, as you do, oh, look, I've got a couple of emails. I'll just check my messages. I'll just do whatever.
Yes.
And it started to disappear, like, because I didn't take that time, that gift that I'd just been given, I was squandering it. So I did write down part of it, but I did lose some of it as well. So, all of the best ideas, you really do not just have to listen to them, but you do have, like, if you've got a notebook or you can take voice notes or things like that, I absolutely recommend doing that, because otherwise you'll lose them.
Absolutely. And what is the best way, if someone wants to connect with you, what is the best way to do so?
Okay, so I am on many social channels, and I am happy to connect with people on any social channel. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/vibrant coach, or Instagram also at vibrant coach. I am on LinkedIn under Tracey Rampling Brown. I am on Clubhouse under Tracey Rampling, and I do lead weekly rooms around the moon cycle. So if anyone wants to learn about the different moon phases and whatnot, you can find me on Clubhouse. If you want to direct contact me via email, you can email me at hello, HELLO, at vibrantcoach.com, or you can find me through my website, www.vibrantcoach.com, and the email address is right there on the front page.
Awesome. We'll put all of these in the show notes. And just one last question, that's more a personal question I want to ask you. Do you have any tips for me to improve my podcast?
Oh, good question. I've actually really enjoyed our conversation today. I think that we have covered everything from heart-centered leadership to pineapple on pizza and everything in between.
I love that. Yeah.
I don't know. I think this has been one of the most enjoyable podcasts I've been on, because there has been some structure and you've had specific questions that you like to ask, but you also allow the conversation to kind of unfold naturally. So
Yes.
I would, I guess, just say keep doing what you're doing, because it makes for a really fun experience.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that. But the one thing that I'm struggling is that I want my podcast, because I get people are busy. I want to keep my podcast short, but the more I try it, the more my podcast become longer and longer, because as I get to learn more and become more of a awakened spiritually, I'm getting to meet higher quality of people. I'm getting more deeper conversations, and I feel it would be a shame, if not criminal, to get short conversation with these type of people, because these are the people that you can have the most to share. So that's where I'm really struggling, because on one hand, I want to have very deep, meaningful conversation like we had today for over almost 2 hours, but also I want to keep it short, because people are busy. Who's going to watch 2 hours?
So I guess perhaps if I were looking at it from that point of view, maybe looking at how, if there are those long conversations, maybe they could be split into 2 episodes or even 3 episodes, where you might have like a part 1, part 2, and part 3, where, like, for example, today we spent like a bunch of time talking about travel and things like that. And that could be an episode in and of itself, talking about taking the leap and traveling, or, talking about heart-centered business or something like that. And maybe there are ways that they could be mixed and matched into multiple episodes, or even like if you've got those specific questions that you want to use, really like sticking with those. And if there is more conversation that you want to do, saying, hey, like, hey, Trace, it was amazing talking to you. Would you like to come back again? And we can continue the conversation in another episode, and then actually booking a second episode.
Love that. Thank you
Continue
very
it.
much. I will have to implement that. Thank you. Well, listen, Tracey, we can talk for hours and hours. We've been talking for almost 2.5 hours now. You're a true enlightened soul. You're a true leader with a heart. I salute you. I wish you the very best. Keep shining your light. Keep helping as many women and people around the world to really get closer to their best version of who they are. You're doing God's service on this planet. So keep doing that. Stay safe, stay awesome, and God bless. We'll definitely keep in touch, and I'll talk to you right after that. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye bye. Ciao.